Distributed systems course. In this lecture that we will understand two-phase commit protocol. Two-phase commit is a consensus protocol used in distributed systems. In distributed systems to implement distributed transactions. We know that what a transaction. Transaction is nothing but a unit of work. We will see in detail in the discussion, but here in a database that when you want to execute updates, delete, or insert, and we want to execute as a unit, then we will use transaction. Transaction is nothing but a unit of action. It's a unit of execution. So either they fail or they will succeed. So it will not left the database in a state that only partially updated or partially succeeded. So either all of the instructions fail or all of the instructions succeed. This is what transaction. Here we will see a simple example how distributed transaction will work. How the two-phase commit protocol can be used in a scenarios like a distributed transaction in a databases. So when we normally consider a transaction, we know that transaction. So this is single machine. It has its own database. Let's consider single one. Now the client makes a request to modify the tables or update the number of rows. So the transaction happens in a single machine. So mostly the transaction happens in a single machine could be taken care by either TBMS, database management system. So it will provide the support. All we need to do is execute correctly. So here, so what if there is a multiple machines? So we have a database, node 1, and we have a node 2. Node 2. So we have multiple nodes, data that are stored in those machines in node 1, node 2. So how we will take care of this transaction when the data are separated into multiple machines like node 1 and node 2. So distributed system is nothing but a collection of machines that will store data. So you will see as a single system. So how the client execute the transaction, since we have two database in node 1 and node 2. So this is where the protocol, something like a two-phase commit comes into the picture. So here, how the two-phase commit protocol works here is we will have another node. Let's say in the same distributed system that we have another node. Let's call this node as a coordinator. Coordinator is a node which orchestrate or coordinate the transaction that happens in multiple machines. For example, here the client sends a request to the coordinator. The coordinator sends a request to the multiple data nodes. So it will execute the transaction. So how it does that? We said that we will use a two-phase commit protocol. So it involves a two phase. One is the commit request phase. Another one is a commit phase. The commit request phase, we can call this is a loading phase. The second phase is a commit phase. Actually, we will commit the data. So what happens when the client makes a request? First, it will make the request to the node 1 and node 2. This is what commit request phase. This is 1. So in this phase, that what actually would do is that the node 1 node 2 has its own log, kind of like write target log. So for persistency, so it has its own log. It will store the whatever the things that we are going to commit and what are the things that changes that you're going to do in this node 1, node 2. It will be persisted in the logs. For example, undo logs. And there is other logs, redo log. So these two logs are specific to those machines. So it keeps those instruction in those logs. Let's call this as an undo log. This is an redo log. So when the coordinator makes a request number, the phase, voting phase, it will persist the data. It will persist in the logs. So data is not committed yet. It has only persisted. It has only been persisted here. Then it will send a yes or no. Yes or no means that whether the transaction can proceed or no. So the response is the node 1, node 2 will return the response here. Yes or no. Let's say it's a yes. So when the coordinator receives a response from those nodes, let's say it's an yes. This is a happy case. There is no problem. So what will happen is it will make another request. So the resources are already locked here in node 1, node 2. So in order to complete the transaction, it will make the commit. This is number 2. It's a commit phase. Actually, it will commit the data and release the resources. Resources that are being locked during the transaction. So this is how the two-phase commit protocol works. It's a blocking protocol. So it will continuously block until all of them will succeed or fail. So this is a two-phase commit. So let's discuss about the failure cases. So what will happen if the coordinator fails during the transaction? So what will happen if the node fails during the transaction? So if the coordinator fails that during the second phase, for example here the commit phase, so data that is locked will be in those nodes. So it is a blocking protocol. So other transaction will not be allowed until that lock expires or committed by some other coordinator. For example, if this fails, that some other coordinator take care of this role, that can commit the transaction. So how can you keep the metadata of this transaction? We can keep it in a database. So we can keep it in a database. Then another transaction coordinator can take care of this. And so how can you keep this? So coordinator, we can keep this in a database, so it can commit or abort. So we seen how the two-phase commit protocol works. So this is happy case. In case of any failure, for example, during the transaction, if it fails in the first phase, then the transaction will be aborted and return the response to the client. If the first phase is successful and the second phase is failure, it will continuously retry until the transaction gets executed. In case if the node fails, if the one of the node fails, then it will return the response about the transaction and return the response to the client. So in case if the coordinator fails, so we can have another coordinator that can take care of this coordinator to complete the transaction. Since we already persisted the data into the logs, undo and redo logs, we can able to undo the transaction when the node comes back, or redo the transaction when the node comes back. That can be desired by the coordinator when another coordinator comes up. So this is how the two-phase commit protocol works. Mostly it's used in distributed transaction. In a distributed transaction, when the data sets are split into the multiple nodes. Mostly when we partition the data into multiple nodes, we have a scenario that we want to execute atomic update or atomic insert in the database that contain multiple nodes. And we have one protocol called two-phase commit. It somewhat similar to Paxos, but It is this is how it works.